Hello.
Hey, Kasum.
It's Mamadou.
Mamadou. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna apply the restrictions and get people in.
Okay.
Good luck, Adi.
Yeah, thank you. Hoping I'm not going to have a power cut again. That would be very sad.
That won't happen. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Where's my background? My Africa background. Yeah. Je suis sans faute.
Quoi? Je disais que tu as dit ça là.
Mamadou, you are muted.
Yeah. Adi, are you? Is everything?
Yes. If you,
set?
if you can hear me, then
I
think I'm ready.
Can you share your screen, Adi?
Yes, I'm going to share now. Okay. Is it okay?
Yeah, I can see your screen.
Perfect.
All right, so hello everyone and welcome to this plenary session about teacher agency and voice through communities of practice that will be led by Aubain Adi. Aubain Adi, we're so lucky to have you and we appreciate that. Without any further ado, to you, Aubain Adi, for 60 minutes.
Wow, that's good. Okay. Welcome everyone to my session. I'm really glad to see you all and thank you from the bottom of my heart. My session is going to be about teacher agency and voice through community of practice. It will involve policy and some real life examples on how COPs in all their forms could be virtual or physical COPs can make us transformative agents. I have these two questions that I always ask myself, whether I'm doing my job efficiently and whether I'm a good teacher. I don't know if there's a difference, but I wanted to ask you first, if you can type in the chat box where you think you stand. Or you can just say do well, or you can just type good teacher in the chat box, because I want to make sure that I'm probably not the same person, the only one person asking myself. Okay, both. Some people are saying they do well. Some people are saying it's both. That's interesting. Okay. 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 All right. Good. So that's mean you agree with me that we can make a sort of difference. You know, we can make a sort of difference. Yeah. No idea. Okay. Never judge yourself. Okay. That we can make a difference. So I'm going to try to make a difference because it's at the heart of my presentation. What do I mean by do well or being a good teacher? Somebody said you don't judge yourself. That's very interesting. So what do I mean? When you say do your job well, actually you don't know. You can't know if you are doing your job well. It's the employer. It's the person who is hiring you to do the job that can judge you, like someone said, saying, okay, he does his job well. Why? Because he has evidence. You are respecting the prescriptions, you are complying with the regulations, you are compliant with the curriculum for a teacher, for example. But I'm a good teacher. When I say, like I said, I am a good teacher, I think this is internal. Like it is your internal, this is your self-consciousness, your self-satisfaction. You're not judging yourself, but you are being satisfied and proud of the job that you do. So I don't think it's judging yourself, but I think every teacher, at the end of the day, when you're going home, you reflect on what you do and you feel some satisfaction, or you feel like, okay, I can improve what I can do to improve. So that's what I mean by being a good teacher. A good teacher is very much internal. But when say I'm doing my job well, you are respecting the prescriptions, you are respecting, you're complying with existing rules and procedures. I'm saying this because it will be important. It's a key of my presentation here. And some people said both. And that's very interesting to me when people say both, because you can't just respect these prescriptions. Sometimes you might want to go beyond just doing your job. And that's where I'll tap in today. So when you do your job, you want to make sure you reach your objectives. You want to make sure your results are good and analyze the result. You want to have better outcome. And you want to grow yourself. You want to grow. You don't want just having this auto satisfaction and not growing, not evolving with your time. You want to contribute to share with others, contribute in communities, for example. So there is left and right, but where we would like to be is both, not just being satisfied or not just satisfying our employer. Both is what action I actually take to improve the situation, to understand my constraints and share with others. So this graphic is what I'm going, what my talk is actually going to claim. But first, I'd like to make a quick tour of the why, and it is important to be both, and how communities help get us into the circle, and the challenges when we are trying to get into the circle. We make a quick tour of challenges of African education. Some of the reasons why we need to get into the circle, actually, to be both. So we're going to analyze these challenges and then understand why it is important to us to get into the circle, not remaining left or right. Okay. Changes occur every day around us, and they come very fast. You will see that ELT pedagogies have changed from grammar translation to CBLT. That some of us even continue to struggle with. Various educational paradigms and student characteristics change every day. New needs arise, and teacher training sometimes it's not. We need to adapt teacher training so that it can be adequate, and sometimes we don't have that opportunity. We always complain. One of the biggest complaints in the English community is that teaching materials are not available. Sometimes they are poor, and this needs of teacher training is even recognized by the Sustainable Development Goal 4, I think it's 4C, recognizes that there's a need to improve overall quality education, including increasing the supply of qualified teachers through teacher training, mainly in developing countries like Cote d'Ivoire. That's one of the challenge is there. The quality of education. We need to improve education. So if we stay left or right, we are not improving education. And teachers' role, and the teacher's role that is prevailing, despite the needs, the quality of teaching has been stagnant in our countries. Curricula are slow to follow the pace of change and human development needs. Teacher training institutions are there. They do their routine work, training teachers. Teachers go to classroom every day, even if not every classroom has a teacher. Yeah, but teacher role is limited. Is limited just to lecturing, compliance with the curriculum. We hear that every day in a workshop. I'm sure you've heard before. After you finish your workshop, teacher will say, yes, but we have to respect the curriculum. You have to respect the school program. This is another problem, But this same program is criticized by employers. The same program that we want to respect is criticized because the employers complain that it's not satisfactory. Okay, the finished product of this curriculum is not satisfactory. The other issue is that even the student themselves, after the studies, they need to make their way through the hardship and of a demanding, modern, changing society. And we fail to give them these life skills to navigate the modern world. Teachers are sometimes too passive agent in educational institutions. When I say they are passive, I don't mean they don't go to classes. They go to classes, but we come later. When I say they are passive, means I'll talk about agencies. So when I say they're passive, we see later. So why are they so passive? Why? What is how do we explain the behavior of this powerlessness of passive agent of teachers in the systems, educational systems? I want to go back a little bit on African education systems in the past during colonial period. Let me admit those two people. Moderator is there. You need to admit my attendees. Okay. So education in our country, like Cote d'Ivoire and many other countries in Africa, we inherited colonial education system. And education in Africa is founded on the model of European mass schooling, according to Shipman in his book in 1971. He described education in Africa as to meet the needs of transitional society from agriculture to industry. So at a certain time in Europe, they needed manpower, they needed labor during the transition from agriculture to industry. So they needed people to work in industries and, and they had to train massive populations to work in these industries. And that's this system that was adapted in Africa after the colonization. So what does it look like? Sorry. This education aimed at inculcating the values needed for the functioning of the bureaucratic organization and the maintenance, like during colonization, and even immediately after the colonization, we needed some labor to work for us, to work in our administration and perpetrate the colonialist economic interests. Okay, so education emphasized the relationship between the authority and the people, such as obedience, respecting the rules, loyalty, respecting the authority. You will see when I'm reading, you will see, feel in yourself and think of how we respect our authorities, how we respect the rules, how we fail to even go beyond the curriculum because it's prescribed by authority. It's like, oh no, I can't do that because it is the curriculum. I can't go beyond the curriculum. Yeah, because you were told to. Maybe we don't know, but because we were told to. Since primary school to your teacher education school, that's what they have been repeating to us. So we are limited because of this education. We are quiet. We work in groups. We respect bells, timetables, tolerance, and monotony. After independence, we still, many years after independence, the colonial model remained in force to serve the interests of our African leaders. I will not say dictators because, I'm recorded, African leaders in power, but also to continue to serve the economic interests of the former colonies. This authoritarian character of school was apparent in the practices. Failure was prohibited, remember? It's now that we learn that failing is not the end of learning. So failure should be like a lesson instead of being prohibited. You know, it was severely punished. I remember again, and probably you also remember, by corporal punishment. You can't make a mistake, and that's you can. You know, there are examples. Many countries. Tanzania in one of the books I read. Tanzania, Namibia, even Cote d'Ivoire. I will tell you that Cote d'Ivoire corporal punishment was banned in 2009. Means what, 10, 11 years back. So, and remember that Cote d'Ivoire independence, we won the independence in 1960. So corporal punishment he inherited from the colonial model was banned 49 years later. And this is just one aspect of this model. The other models is still prevailing, like silencing people, being obedient, and all these things is still prevailing. You know, which means that many of us who are here today to a certain extent and intensity experience whipping, flagellation, and all mental oppression and violence. School knowledge is characterized by imparting factual knowledge to the student by a teacher, rather than encouraging creativity or learning to solve problems in the environment we are in. We learn by memorization. Remember being whipped if you fail to recite your lesson. This model of education also was influenced by African culture itself. You know, a factor, the culture is an important factor that contributed to maintain the European authoritarian model of education introduced in Africa. Because this model is congruent with African culture. The traditional education, for example, Islamic religion in some part of Africa, like in Cote d'Ivoire, in the Hausa region, Nigeria, child education in these societies partly relied on fear and corporal punishment, like we said. So we would like our children to be obedient, to respect, submission. You know, we don't asking people to be polite. Okay, respect is good, but submitting people through violence, rather than teaching them to take initiative, to be autonomous thinkers. That's what we want our education to be. That's what we want the teacher to be, you know. But their objective was to bring the people to submission to the authority, you know, once they become adults. So this is what has been prevailing so far in our educational system. You know, for almost a century, the colonial education founded on oppression and subordination have influenced guidelines of African education. Schools have been organized around authoritarian and autocratic ideas, and school knowledge in Africa has been limited to factual information about the subject matter, just to self-administration, rather than training to create, rather than training to innovate and invent. You know, these practices also were reinforced, as we said, by African belief, cultural and religious belief. And African education has succeeded in training bureaucrats, even if their efforts today to improve currently, there are a lot to do, again, to educate independent and creative citizens after many years of servile submission to the authority. And the teachers today were or are the students of that authoritarian model. So that's where I'm coming from. So we're going to talk about teacher agency. So how, why, or how the teachers are the way they are. You know, I followed a conversation and how teachers are asking to be paid to learn from others, or teachers are asking for certificate or this kind of thing, you know. So this foundation takes us to the construction of the African teacher role. What is a teacher? Those who studied abroad, I think you saw the difference, even if there's no perfect system, but you saw the difference between the teachers in Africa, in your public school, and teachers abroad. You saw the difference, you know. And you can see yourself how your behavior probably changed after your studies abroad. So the construction of the African teacher's role, how people view a teacher, you know, a teacher. This is what I'm going to talk about. And the model has influenced this, the European colonialism has influenced this construction and our culture. So what we do is, I go from the perception that what we do is closely related to how we define ourselves, our identity, how we define our family. The idea that we have of our own competencies and capabilities, everything we do is related to that. You know, the construction of a teacher in the system is accountable for teachers' self-efficacy or self-esteem. If a teacher has a low self-esteem or a high self-esteem, that is how his role is viewed. You know, the teacher is constructed as someone who should execute, and this is the problem is the teacher should execute and inspire respect. You know, it's a social class wearing a gray suit uniform with a white shirt and a tie. You know, it's now a common culture that all teacher educations are wearing a uniform. This is a way of categorizing teachers in a certain group to better control them. You know, and we are proud of it. Somehow, when wearing this uniform, it's part of our identity, but it's what we put in this package of identity that is not, that it can be dangerous. Okay, a training institution wants to maintain that control over the teachers, you know, but doing so, they are hindering the capabilities of autonomy and critical thinking because they're just going to obey. They're just going to obey. If their role in the system is to teach, not reflect. It's the big claim, but I'll come to that. Teaching is just repeating step by step, word by word, how they are trained in the school. And many teachers have reported that there is a gap between what they dreamed of as a pre-service teacher and the real experience in the classroom. That's also to see that there's a mismatch between what we are taught in school and what is on the field. That's another problem. There are gaps in teacher education. You know, there's discrepancy between the curriculum and real life skills. Teachers are trained to use course books. Course books, you have a student manual, a teacher book where everything is explained, but teachers' books are everywhere except in the classroom. There are bookstores, they're in bookstores, and the students are not using them. So wait, I ask myself, how am I supposed to teach with a material that I'm trained to use when my students don't have it? And I don't know any other way of teaching except using this coursebook. So there is the issue. What to do? I don't know. I can't do it. I have to obey. I have to comply with the curriculum. So this is the book. My students don't have the books. I can't teach. So what I've seen during class visit up country is that the teacher has a book and he talks and the students watch as spectators. This is a question. There's something missing there that we can't understand. There's something wrong with that training where I have to use something. You train me to use a particular weapon. I can use a different weapon, but then this weapon is not available, and then I have to go on the war field. The war field, how do I manage? This is a question. Some part of the training is missing. I think something is not working as planned. And there we come to teachers' voice. Teachers are silent very often, deliberately silent. They work in system where their voice is not listened to. Even when we know that teachers talk louder than anyone else, teachers have been muted for so long that face to creativity, innovation, problem solving, they have developed inaction, ineffectiveness, powerlessness, uselessness, alone and isolated in the midst of numbers of students with diverse socio-economic background. It's easy to get overwhelmed by inaction and powerlessness when I can't change things myself. Teacher expertise in this system is not valued because you are labeled as a teacher. A teacher must not wear jeans. I'm sure some people in here will disagree with me, and that's perfect. You can disagree, but for me, what's the point if a teacher is wearing jeans? A teacher a teacher must not have a PhD because he's a teacher. What's the point of having a PhD? You are a secondary school teacher. You don't need a PhD. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Okay. And these are things we hear every day. And it's sometimes shocking to hear these things, how teachers' expertise is not valued. Yeah. Sometimes teachers have other skills that can be useful to the school and to their students. However, when someone is labeled teacher and his voice has no value, then is limited. Is limited to the use of the course book, which is not available in the school, it's not available in the classroom. There are still perceptions that a teacher is not trained to design teaching material. Yeah. A teacher is not trained to design teaching material. There are some people who are particularly trained to do that, you know. So, well, when a teacher has no choice, he has no credential to do this. So after all, the expectations probably is just to, like we saw in the beginning, is just to do the job well, meaning being on time, respect hierarchy, respecting the procedures. But you teach. Are you sure your students are learning when you respect all the rules? Because the key is teach and the student learn. So if you are just teaching to comply with the regulation, prescriptions, and then the students are not learning, watching as spectators, then there's no point teaching. So for example, the consequence of this inactivity is that sometimes teachers, I hear this all the time, my students have no course book, which is a fact. I agree. Or, yeah, I have large classes. My students, too many students in my classes, 100. That's a fact. My students are not motivated. That's also a fact. Students don't learn their lessons, possibly. My student level is low, possibly. Yes. So I just repeat these sentences, but because I'm not trained to turn these sentences into knowledge, I am limited. So instead of saying my students are not motivated, for example, well, why don't we say, why aren't my students motivated? This could sound better, but when we stick to the statement, my students have no course book, because we are trained to use a course book. So when they start, we stick with my students have no course book. Well, we can change this sentence into how can I teach to students who don't have course books? You know, how do I manage my large classes? My student level is too low. That's good, that's a fact. But I can turn this question into, are my teaching materials adapted to the level of my students? These kind of things that we miss, that are missing in our training. And this is contradiction between what we want and what we do. We want a better outcome, but we train passive teachers instead of empowering them as agents of transformation, capable of turning these ideas into inquiries and not resign faced to challenges. And that's where communities of practice come in to help. That's where communities of practice come in to help. Because we have challenges, but we have no means, we have no support, since our employers are just telling us to do something, and we can't reject it because it's part of our job, and also because we are brainwashed. We have a pre-designed attitude and behaviors. So we don't know. So how can communities of practice help in this perspective? So for example, here, So we come to teacher agency, and as one of the way to come to the circle in the middle, not stay on the left, not stay on the right, but be in the circle. As you can read the definition here, teacher agency. Well, there are a lot of debate about teacher agency, in the literature. I've seen debate, some are opposed, others are complementary, and some others are specific to teacher professionalism. So we wanted to go with this simple definition that helped us develop our talk. So teachers' active contribution in shaping their work and conditions, as you can see. So with all the difficulties that we have, that we talked about in the beginning, agency is active contribution to the improvement of work condition. So the let's see, agency is the teacher's interpretation of his schoolwork and work environment, and his enactment of this work environment. Agency involves the quality of how teachers engage with their context. How do you engage with your context? How do you understand your constraints and find solutions? Agency is the engagement of teachers to take active roles in the schools or organization instead of being passive, instead of just stating my students have a low level, taking action. But since the institutions and organizations have silenced the teacher, and teacher training have not allowed the teachers to ask these sort of questions, communities of practice is actually a good opportunity to develop, to thrive. Applying agency into our context. Agency is the active role of teachers and how, as agent, we can act to contribute to the improvement of our environment through change and transformation. Understanding our constraint. Theory is founded on the idea that agents engage with the present and future basing on their past experiences. So reflecting on the past experience to shape the present and future. I think this involves creativity, innovation, invention or reinvention, and a certain leadership. And in most teacher communities, I see this word, leadership. That's how at Africa ELTA, we prepare people to leadership. I read in the newsletter, female leadership mentoring. We prepare people to leadership. This is the importance and creativity. The thing that the construction of teacher by system have denied to teachers for a long time because they're muted. teacher with agency is not passive, but active. He takes action towards the improvement of his job and work conditions. The teacher work become more dynamic rather than linear. And he's trained to do a linear job, but in a constant changing society, teachers must not be considered as static agent with prescribed attitude. Anytime I attend a workshop and I hear teachers' reaction, in the new workshop, you will hear teachers reacting, no, we can't do this because, no, we can't do it because I've never heard someone saying, yes, I will adapt it to this context. I can use this part like this and move and do this, but it's always like, no, we can't do this because we have many students. We can't do this because there is this. We can't do this because we don't have this. Well, what if we change this into some other things? Like, how can I do this? And that's what we teach teachers to do in communities of practice. The reason why you are here today watching Africa ELTA, I don't want to be fined $100 if you say Africa TISO, Africa ELTA. That's why we are here today. To learn, to create, to share with other people what works for us and how it might work for them. It's a bottom-up approach as opposed to the top-down one from our employers, institutions, and systems. I know many people have defined communities of practice during this conference. I'll just put in just one definition. It's like this. COPs are groups of people who share a common concern, a set of problems or interests in the topic, like English, and who come together to fulfill both individual and group goals. Right? There are alternative views to organizational learning. Like, it is a place where teachers expand learning, share experience, and improve their practices through experimentation, things that are denied by our systems of education, using corporal punishment because you make an error, a mistake. If I'm presenting here today, it's not because I'm an expert, but it's because Africa ELTA is offering me this opportunity to experiment, to try and fail and grow from my lessons I learned from my failures. But without this community, I would never present, I would never meet you. This is the power of COPs, where teachers like us, if you have some potential, I don't think I have, you can unleash them and not being limited to the prescriptions of a school curriculum. So this said, I have a few examples I can describe, things I've seen myself evolving, changing communities, teaching in Cote d'Ivoire and elsewhere. For example, in this case, teachers train teachers. So what does it mean? It's a project by CNELTA that we named TOT. TOT, okay, training of trainers. Training of trainers. And before this project, it was hard to believe that a teacher could train another teacher, because he is not a trainer, he's not a teacher trainer. I am a teacher trainer, so I'm actually authorized to train teachers. But because the perception was that, come on, how you teacher, you want to train a teacher or another teacher? No. We have the same status. How do you want to come to my classroom? Why do you want to train me? We went to the same university and we attended the same schools and teacher training schools. And but in COPs, sharing practices on aspects of teaching we are the most comfortable with is not prohibited. And we design this project where more experienced teachers supporting other teachers in a friendly and free atmosphere. When CNELTA designed this project, TOT project, teachers that we recruited could not consider themselves as trainers in the beginning. And that was very embarrassing, because they were even afraid to have, if I say, conflict with their local official teacher trainer. So we have to explain to them that there will normally no conflict, but because they are not official, they're not government teacher trainer, it's just that the project will allow them to share their experiences together. Because they are official teacher trainers, but not all regions in Cote d'Ivoire have teacher trainers. So that's another question. When I talk about the course book, this is another question. So if a teacher cannot train a teacher and teacher trainers are not available, so well, how do I train myself? So I'm going to teach for 30 years without sharing. I'll be lying to the student all the time. But inside a community, these are things that we can do. It's just sharing, stress-free, friendly manner, giving feedback on things, discussing challenges and planning lessons. Another project of CNELTA is teachers learning new.
Excuse me, Aubain?
Yes.
Yeah, excuse me, we have 10 minutes left. Could you try to wrap up so we can have some time for Q&A session?
Already? Oh man. Okay. It's almost done. So teachers training other new skills. So this is where we train the CNELTA train teachers in educational technology. And this was in 2017, before the COVID. It's just after 2017, 2019 that our country realized that teachers need educational training. But believe me, the CNELTA, we had thought of that before, but because we are silenced, nobody listened to us. So now, you see, that's another example, communities of practice. And one other example. It's just example, so this is going to be the last one. A teacher researcher, a teacher carrying research. Believe me, teachers learn action research at teacher training school, but after graduation, it's finished. Nobody else will ask a question, in the classroom. But this is a project held in Dabu in the community of Dabu, supported by the University of Manchester, where Cote d'Ivoire teachers in the community, they were empowered to lead inquiry-led practices, where here in this picture, you can see the microphone, they're sharing their findings. And I think this is just amazing. And only in communities you can do that. Okay, thank you very much. I'll stop here. Teachers have talents. You see, Senator, we have the voice teachers. One example is the community of English workshop in Togo, for example. We have other communities, but the time is we constraint. I will stop here for today. And thank you for listening to me. I hope you didn't suffer too much.
Thank you so much, Aubain Adi. We didn't suffer at all. We enjoyed it. Yeah. Any question? I could see Mr. Tehe, if I'm getting his name right. He raised his hand at the very beginning, and yeah, and many people have been asking questions in the chat box. Yeah, could you type in again your question so I can read them to the speaker? All right, so I can see a question from Abdel Salam Zwita. Are we remodeling the same predefined conventional roles while throwing all the accountability on teachers' shoulder? Should I read it again?
Are not we remodeling the same predefined conventional roles while throwing all the accountability on teachers' shoulder? I don't think we are throwing accountability on teachers' shoulder. We are saying that communities help teachers develop, ask questions, and grow. So instead of just being passive, you can contribute to the level of your possibilities. That's what we're trying to explain. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So what do we put in expression? More experienced teachers. Okay. More experienced teachers is, for example, teachers with a certain number of years. Sometimes it's political correct to say teachers with knowledgeable experience with in pedagogy, for example. Okay.
So a question from Kasum.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. Do we have school curricula abroad? What's wrong or good about a curriculum?
Abroad, I mean, you said?
Do we have school curricula abroad? What's wrong? Abroad, yeah, abroad.
Uh-huh.
What's wrong or good about a curriculum?
We do have school curricula everywhere where there's education. Okay, and I think curricula is a way of having a uniform recommendations and directive on how to educate the citizens of a country, how a country will like its citizens, the attitude, knowledge, and skills that the country will like its citizens to have. That's what they put in the curricula. Like I explained, So if there's no critical thinking in your curriculum, your student will not develop critical thinking. You know, if you put how to you teach your students the history of Sundiata Keita, they will learn Sundiata Keita, and that's it. Yeah.
All right. We still have 3 minutes for another question. So are there any changes? Are there any changes when teachers occupy high leadership position in the society? Minister of Education, President, Director, why?
Are there any changes?
Yeah, when teachers occupy high leadership position in the country.
Okay. I can't tell if there are changes. But because I can't tell. I can't tell. I don't feel like there are changes. I really don't feel like there are changes because we have the same education. This education I talk about. There might be changes as well. There might be changes because you probably understand, but if you never engage in the community before and you might be a leader in a country without being a leader yourself. Maybe because you're taking the position because it's just better paid, but you may not be a leader. You may not understand your population. You may be there for your own interest, and we've seen this in many contexts. Yeah. We're keeping short to answer more questions, right?
Yeah, keeping it short. Yeah, another question from Robert Kenfak. How is corporal punishment related to the African culture? Is Islamic education African? Is Islamic education African? These are actually two questions.
How is corporal punishment related to the culture? Is Islamic education African? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So corporal punishment, when I was in primary school, like it was something that was prevailing in primary school. Maybe you guys, you didn't experience that, but believe me, sometimes you don't want to go to class because you were afraid of the teacher, who is called Piment Rouge, which is red pepper, and these are things that we had to courageous enough, and it was tolerated by society in general because our parents wanted us to be obedient, but but I don't think it's necessary to be violent towards a kid of 9 or 10 to teach him how to be a good citizen. There are many other ways to do that.
All right.
Islamic education, African. I gave examples of Africa with countries that maybe are teaching Islam using rote memorization, like in Cote d'Ivoire, for example. But I don't think that Islamic education is African. Since
all right. Yeah, we are running short of time, Aubain. Sorry for interrupting you. Thank you all for attending such a brilliant talk by Aubain Adi. Thank you so much. As I said at the beginning, we are so lucky to have you here, share with us your many years experience. So the conference continues. Check out the program on our conference website and sign up for the free membership in Africa ELTA. Thank you. See you.
Thank you. So let me download this.